Good evening, viewers. Welcome to another special edition of the flagship political show that comes on your way every Tuesday at 9 p.m. on QTV, called The State of Affairs. With me in the studio, sitting in for my co-host, Aliu Sise. I'm joined by Ansuman Eso Nyasi, my only nephew in the building. How are you, Ansuman?
I am fine. Good evening, CD. I mean, it's a pleasure to be on this platform. And as usual, I look forward to an interesting engagement.
Thank you very much, Eso. With me in the studio, we have the Honorable Lord Mayor of KMC. I guess this is the first time he has joined us on this platform. Lord Mayor, welcome to State of Affairs.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to have you.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Let's start. What has been the most successful initiative that have truly made difference to the lives of people in KMC?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, to be on your show, like you've said, for the first time. We've had many accomplishments in KMC, and one of the biggest and the one we are most proud of is our accomplishments in sanitation. As you know, we just made one of the most successful public-private partnerships in the name of the Mbalit project, which is now a project fully owned and operated by KMC as an institution. It started in partnership with the Q Group with the purchase of 24 vehicles, brand new vehicles, and 10 skip bins. And we operated it at a small fee to the community of $10 per bag. And just about 3 years, we are of full ownership of the fleet. Also, in sanitation, we have the Bakote dump site. We signed a very good agreement with SOS and the German government to upgrade the facilities in the Bakote dump site in the name of the BMZ project. The project's main purpose is to enhance facilities and enhance infrastructure to limit the hazards from the dump site. And it's about $42 million, consisting of 2 concrete roads, recycling shed, solar lights, toilet blocks, a powerful borehole, which is supposed to help in firefighting activities. So these are huge accomplishments. Of course, the council also built a fence around the dump site with taxpayers' money. It's a 1.8 kilometer fence at 3 meters high. So all of these are unprecedented inroads in waste processing in the Gambia. And we have many more in the pipeline, and we are sure we'll have many more developments to come.
How do you relate this to changing the lives of the citizens of KMC?
Well, waste is priority. Without health, there can be no wealth, there can be no progress. If waste is all over the municipality, you'll have disease outbreaks, cholera outbreaks. You will have flash floods because of drains being clogged and illegal dump sites blocking waterways. Also, malaria cases will be on the rise. It's definitely just one of those things that every society must prioritize if they want to have stability and progress. So it has impacted the lives of people of KMC in various ways. Residential waste collection was non-existent until the Mbalit project came about. Of course, it was being done by informal players such as donkey carts, who are still present in the market, but nothing as comprehensive as this and with as much coverage. Since we started, we have estimated 9 million collections from households, and 400 tons of waste a day is extracted from households into the dump site, and at such a cheap and minimal cost.
Just before my colleague comes in here, talking about cheap and minimal cost. Yes. You're talking about residents paying $10 per bag.
Yes.
What about businesses? Are they also paying the same fee?
So businesses pay the equivalent depending on the volume of waste you're producing. So estimate is done about how many bags consist of your waste, and you're charged accordingly.
So say, for example, I'm a shop owner around the corner at London Corner, and I have a bag, then I'll pay $10.
$10, yes.
Those are really, actually, scratch the balance. These people are doing business.
Well, they pay and
you expect them to pay more.
It's a good question.
Yes.
They pay an extra fee called partial cost recovery when they're paying their business license.
Okay.
So that is an extra environmental charge, aside just from the regular waste management.
Is there a fixed?
It's a fixed fee, depending on the size of your business.
Okay.
So a small business would pay about $2,500 annually.
Okay.
You speak so highly of some of these accomplishments you've made since assuming office. What are some of the challenges you've had to deal with? to be able to achieve some of these things?
I sometimes joke that KMC mayor is probably the toughest job in the Gambia, if not the world. KMC is a very complex region. It's the most densely populated region in the Gambia. It's the second smallest after Banjul, and the second largest after Birkama. Because of this, you have a very dense population. The country on average is 176 people per kilometer square. KMC is 5,000 people per kilometer square. So we have pressure in waste management, we have pressure in infrastructure, the school system has pressure, housing has pressure. It's just a lot of pressure all around. And of course, the story of Gambia is there's not enough resources to solve all these challenges. And on top of that, we also have constitutional challenges as area councils. We don't have the powers we need to effectively serve the people. So our counterparts around the world, whose governments are more matured, have devolution of power and decentralization of services, and of course revenue, which goes along with it. For us, things are pretty centralized. Even our staff are controlled by government. So these things make it very difficult for councils to provide the very basic services. School systems, fire services, housing, all these things that are under control of local councils in other parts of the world are not under our control. So I think all these challenges in a mixed bag make it one of the most difficult jobs.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Quickly, coming back to this ballot project, and earlier on we had in the news, you talked about deploying 500 street bins in KMC. I want to know the success of that, because half of the time you go around in KMC, you will still see litter, all over the place. So I want to know the success of that. And coming back, that you have now taken ownership of the ballot project, you have taken the vehicles. When you are in partnership with the Q Group, you were charging residents of $10. Now that it belongs to KMC, how would you justify continue charging at the $10?
So I'll answer the first question about the littering. Littering is a huge challenge. The Minister of Local Government and Lands visited us last week, and he made a very interesting comment. He said he was driving around and he saw a no dumping sign by KMC, but around the sign was a dump. And he wondered what's going on. And he said also, when you put litter or waste where it's supposed to go, that is the responsibility of the council. But if you put it where it's not supposed to go, that's the responsibility of the people. And just like my colleague in Monrovia, Mayor Koji, he spoke on the news and he said, spirits do not create waste, it's people. So people have to educate themselves, have to educate their children at the school level. Teachers have to educate children on their relationship with waste. Waste must be managed and it must go to the areas that they're designated, or we will live in a very messy society. As you've rightly said, we experimented with the street bins. We've had some success, but not as much as we would like. We've put street bins in strategic areas, but sometimes they actually attract the wrong kind of waste. People will bring household waste from their houses and put it in the street bin. Also, we see a scenario where street vendors are misusing and abusing the bins. And this has become a very big problem for KMC. And I think what's lacking is two. We need a national strategy on waste. We need the National Environment Agency to step up a bit, and we need the Ministry of Environment to help support enforcement around waste. I believe the Constitution has an Anti-Littering Act that needs to be enforced. Council has come up with bylaws. We're also struggling to enforce it because of our manpower as far as police are concerned. But if it's a national issue with the amount of security forces we have, I think it would be easier policed. But also, like I said, communities have to take ownership and have to shame people when they litter. If you drive behind cars, even as mayor, I drive behind cars on highways, I just see people throwing litter out their windows. And these are streets we try to clean as much as possible, but that's not sustainable. So I think, like I said, a national campaign needs to be had around waste and also national enforcement. Secondly, we want to look towards Senegal also. We've seen Senegal used to be a lot more littered than Gambia when we were growing up. One of the pointed things you notice when driving across the border is the litter around Kaulak and Moor and all those places. But now if you go, you'll find out they are much cleaner than Gambia, which is not a good story for us. Also, there was a ban on plastics. I wish that can return, or at least the enforcement of it. This will all help. Also, once I spoke at the local government select committee and said, Gambia needs a policy around importation of second-hand goods, because this just adds to our litter problem. The age of cars coming into this country, the older they are, the faster they would be dumped on the street or abandoned, and the more derelict vehicles we will have. The same phenomena follows with used tires. If you import second-hand tires and next to new tires, rest assured after 6 months people will dispose of them. And Gambia does not have yet recycling facilities for tires, which is a very difficult thing to recycle. So I think, like I said, a national approach and a legislative agenda around waste is very important. On the second thing you asked about the charges with Mbalit. Now, like you rightly said, Mbalit was a program to sort of, it's a build, operate, transfer model. We find private capital to invest in these things. That gives a social benefit, charge a minimal fee over a period of time, recover the cost. But not only in that, Mbalit is a very expensive operation to run. It has about 172 staff, I believe. It costs us millions of dollars on maintenance, fuel, and salaries. And of course, we have a replenishment plan. We don't want a scenario where over a period the vehicles depreciate and are salvaged, and then we go back to scratch. We want a plan where over the years, whatever council comes, they find a fleet that is functioning, and we hope they also have a renewable plan. Every 5 years they bring new vehicles, so the old ones are retired. But on top of that, we're also reviewing the charges as well. Like you rightly said, we want our communities also to feel more incentivized to use the system and the service. So we are looking at a plan through our finance committee about how we can further bring down the cost, or to transfer them and find other means of income so people can always put the Mbalit in the right place.
One will justify that if I pay my rate, those services like my Mbalit and recreational centers and all that should be provided by the council.
So the truth of the matter is 80% of KM residents are not paying their rate, and they follow.
Who do you have to blame for that?
Is the system is what we inherited.
What system, Mayor?
So, for example, KMC or most of Gambia doesn't have an effective addressing system. Most of the people living within the municipality, well, not most, but a good number, are in settlements that are not supposed to be settled in. These were well encroached over the years. So physical planning for decades in Gambia has been very poor. We have not had an effective addressing system or databases that shows where people live. And so since we came, this is one of the things we've been pushing very hard to accomplish, to make sure that our revenue base is structured, to make sure that houses are numbered and streets are named, to make sure that these people are all put into database so they can be effective collection. What we are suffering is what GRA is suffering, is what all area councils are suffering. But it's about time that we come as a nation to build the infrastructure and the foundations of this country, or to build the economy, or to provide services, or to collect taxes will be very, very, very difficult. So if all of KMC's residents, or at least we had 90% compliance, KMC would have enough money to build as many roads as people would like, as many markets as people would like, to buy vehicles for sanitation. So because we don't have that, that's why we had to go through the route of the PPP. But also I need people to understand that there's nothing free in this world. Even in the West, you may think you're not paying for your Mbalit, but you are. Some charge upfront, like we do, on a monthly charge. Others inbuild it into your rates.
Of course.
But because people are not paying their rates, we cannot effectively inbuild.
But some are paying their rates.
Very few.
Yeah.
And we want to encourage.
The few are also being penalized for buying the back.
Not penalized. I think it's the system needs to work.
I'll allow Mr. Nyasi to come in here before I go into that. I think this system we need to dig into.
Exactly.
Yes,
I'm really interested in
Absolutely,
understanding. The system you're talking about. But let me draw you back a little bit. You mentioned improving services.
Yes,
you mentioned building infrastructure and challenges and difficulties and all that.
Yeah.
I just want to understand, in what state did you find KMC when you assumed office?
So KMC KMC was found in a very difficult place when we took office. Number one problem is the human resources. For any organization to work effectively, you need human resources with capacity. And that's one of the things that was missing in KMC. As you know, for many years, KMC was used more of a political wing than a service-driven institution. And for that reason, many people were taken on the basis of politics and not on capacity. Another issue we have is Gambia's pay scale is very low in government. So even if you wanted the right talents, you couldn't pay for them. So this in a mixed bag, we found KMC's human resources in a very difficult situation. But we realized that these are Gambians, these are people with jobs. How do we motivate them, incentivize them, do some capacity building? And we've come a long way. A lot of the people I was speaking about 5 years later have had training. They have had also more motivation and more concentration on how do we resource them to be able to deliver the services. And they've come a long way. Secondly, also coming to the same human resource question, is once upon a time, councils used to have what we call the local government service commission on the council level, meaning the council, the mayor and his councillors could use this commission to capacitize the council, whether it be training programs or employing the right staff with the right capacity. But this was moved away from councils during the former regime. Let me make that clear. Yeah. Under the former regime, it was moved away from councils and centralized. And they now called it the Unified Local Government Service Commission, which the minister appoints. And this created two scenarios. It created a scenario where they are slower now, because one, they are not at the council level, so they don't understand the urgency of situations. And two, they are also dealing with now 8 councils as one commission. Instead of before, there was 8 commissions dealing independently with 8 councils. Secondly, there's an issue of they don't understand the issues at the council level because they are not there. So a lot of the matters that come to them, they don't have a strong understanding of. So this has slowed down council's human resource capacity or enhanced the problem. And we would like to see a reversal of that, and we've been advocating for that. Secondly, you asked about generally the challenges, and financial resources is also a major challenge we found. We found a lot of deficits in terms of our bank balances at the council. We also found an issue of very low level revenues. When we came to council, revenue was, I believe, about 117 million from 2017. And this was a big challenge, how to balance salaries and service delivery. And since then, we had a focus on how do we boost this revenue. Okay. As of last year, our revenue was 230 million. So we've had more than 100% increase. And this year, we are targeting 300 million. But I believe council can generate a lot more revenue if, like I said, we did have the investment needed at the revenue base to structure it. We know Ministry of Information has partnered with the council to put Google Plus codes at every gate. And that also has improved our ability to track residents. Now we have a GIS unit where we can look at a satellite and see all the parcels, all the houses, all the roads, etc. Now we need another layer of information now where I can come and say, oh, this is where Mr. Mboj lives, number 1, Battle Harding Highway, etc. And that information now we can also share with the banking sector, utilities, telecoms, security sector, and all these services, and even the economy would naturally.
Is that a step closer to name our streets, for example?
We are a step closer.
Yeah.
And like I said,
because one thing that I find bizarre after 50 odd years of independence, if I have to visit my auntie somewhere in Fajikunda, I have to stay on the phone for half an hour to directions. I mean, somebody listening will say, you don't know your auntie's house? Maybe I knew it before, but I was away from the Gambia. So I have to, get myself familiar with this. So I think when you talk about the challenges and you talk about, low revenue collection, I mean, I think actually stepping in, trying to organize KMC, one thing you fundamentally should have focused on was naming the streets, giving compounds, numbers. And I think that would be an investment that would yield a lot of money coming back. I know the Bali project, it was urgency, but after 5 years, Mr. Bensouda, I thought by now, I could just ring a friend and say I live at Suda Street. What's going on here?
So it's not as easy as one may imagine. We've been working on it actually, and we've actually had street naming committees at every locality, every ward. We've actually opened ward offices to make sure that the alcalo, the councillor, the community leaders are coming together and identifying. It's not as easy as one might imagine. First, there's the disputes about what names should go on what streets. And secondly, is actually the investment needed to make that happen. It's not a cheap investment.
When you mean investment, what sort of investment?
The technology you need, because it's one thing just to name it, but how do you digitalize?
Well, you got to go step by step.
Yes, so we've created the first layer, like I've said. We have the GIS unit, we have the structures in place. So now what we need is the budgets allocated to make sure that the street names are actually digitalized before we can get now to the physical part, which is the plates and the numbers.
So you want to digitalize it before getting the names out? Why not?
No. The names are ongoing, like I've said.
Okay.
It's just not as fast as one may imagine, because these are community issues. I cannot come and just name a street, Mboch Street, because somebody would dispute. So actually what we are saying is we are moving away from actually personalities. So as far as numbers are concerned, the streets are numbered.
Yes.
Okay. So when you're moving away from personalities, I don't understand that, because I am if you go, for example, Serekunda, we all know our old grandma or grandfather, Serejo. No one would dispute naming, Serekunda.
But you just said when you started, one of the most difficult things is getting to addresses. 90%.
No, I understand.
Because 90% of streets are not named. So Sayar Job is the exception. Batil Harding Highway is the exception.
Yes.
Karaba Avenue is the exception. But today when I ask you, which street do you live in? Do you have a name?
Oh, yeah, I do. I live in the estates. So but quickly, yes. How soon? I know, it's quite frustrating for me. It's something that I'm really passionate about.
It's more frustrating for me.
Yes. So, and again, it's an investment, Lord Mayor, that will bring millions.
Absolutely.
Every time all the councils talk about not having money. And I have seen this is money making. Let people don't misquote this. It's money making in the sense it's going to be more organized and it's going to actually beat the crime down in our community.
Absolutely.
So I think it's something that you guys need to.
So let me ask you a question.
I don't answer questions.
Would you rather have your waste taken weekly, or a street name on your waste not taken at all?
Unfortunately, where I live, I don't get my waste collected.
Yes, exactly. So
but not in KM.
Yeah, so basically what it is a competition of priorities. Okay. So when we sit at the council level, you have 19 ward councillors, each coming from a different ward, and some of their wards really have big problems. You look at, for example, Ibo Town, Talinding, Fajikunda, these are all wetlands. So the problems there are immense. You come also to the nominated councillors. We have a women's councillor, we have a youth councillor, transport councillor. They also have demands. Then you come to the departmental level with directors. So to squeeze any monies from a very tiny budget is sometimes very, very, very difficult. And the investment needed is huge. So when the Minister of Local Government came, one of the things I really liked about his speech, Mr. Abasanyang, was one of his priorities, according to him, was how does he get Gambia organized as far as street names and house numbers are concerned. And that was music to my ears. Is that this is what I've been saying for the longest of times. Councils, like I said, don't have the resources. We are trying to balance the little monies we have in many
Have you tried the
demands.
I'm sorry to jump in here. Have you tried the private sector in this project? Because for example, you have a couple of banks in your, many banks.
You don't have to go far.
No,
in 2019,
let me just put.
In 2019, I invited all the private sector, including QCell, not QTV, but QCell. We invited AfriCell, we invited QCell, we invited all the telecoms, all the banks, and I chaired this meeting. I said this is of our mutual interest. If we can have a fully functional addressing system, then all your businesses will benefit. And I use the banks as an example. Today, if you wanted to take a loan from a bank, what do you tell them? When they say, where's your property? Do you know some banks are actually drawing diagrams to showcase where your street is? So everything is slow. And the chances are non-existent. So the chances of even getting a loan, if you cannot pinpoint your property, are impossible. So in Gambia, only people having access to finance are people who are already well-known, famous or have an established business. But as an individual who has a job, you are able to pay back the loan, but because nobody knows you, you cannot get access to the loan. You cannot even show where you live. But when that meeting started, majority of businesses were saying, we have to go back to our board of directors.
And
this is not a decision.
Can you not impose on them?
This is not a decision. Unfortunately, we don't have that kind of power.
Okay.
So this is something that government probably could do. And like I said, the new minister is saying this thing and is encouraging. Do you know the last valuation roll for KMC is since 2005? Meaning if this building we are sitting in was built after 2005, you are paying an empty plot rate. Because at 2005, this building was an empty plot. So that's something I also told the new minister, because what our act says is the roll must happen every 5 years.
And it hasn't
to update, and it's not happened since 2005. Another issue is, little do we know in terms of the borders of municipalities, the borders of wards, the borders of territories, the borders of regions. All of these things needs to be established by the ministry. And he spoke about all of these things, which is very encouraging. But Gambia as a country needs to reorganize itself, because these are very fundamental.
Next time we came, see reorganization.
Yes. Actually, I know you mentioned that, council is already working on this, but this naming of states, how soon do you think we can have this?
So the street naming, like I said, we are on it. We are on that project. Like we have a GIS unit. This is something new. This is something novel, which we never had in KMC. So it's on the plans. But as you rightly know, our term ends in December. This is a future issue, but the unit is already established. It just depends on now the resources that can be mobilized and the political will.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor and my co-host, SO. We'll go for a short commercial break and we'll be back shortly.
Looking for the fastest and easiest way to receive money transfers from abroad? Well, QMoney and RIA just made it happen. Now you can receive international money transfer from RIA directly into your QMoney account with no additional cost. Once you receive an SMS alert about your transfer, walk into any QMoney agent across the country to receive your payment for free, or use the money immediately to buy credit, QPower, and other QMoney services. It's fast, safe, and convenient. For more info, call customer care on 133. QMoney, Sinu Calpe. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back. We have Lord Mayor Bensouda here as our guest on the State of Affairs. With me, my co-host, Eso Nyasi. I proudly say my only nephew in the thing. But I must take this opportunity before we go to Lord Mayor to congratulate my nephew, Aliu.
Long overdue.
Long overdue. Aliu is a bridegroom.
Sure.
So Aliu, congratulations. And we wish you all the best of luck in this new life. Eso said it's madness, but I don't see it as madness. Thank you very much. Lord Mayor, coming back on the issue of finance, on the issue of money, it's like when he comes to Gambia, many institutions, almost all of them, would always be spinning their fingers. We don't have money. You have constraints of finance and stuff. Apart from the ballot project, what you have rightly said was to change the lives of the people, taking the garbage out. Let's go back to that. Was successful, and definitely you paid off. What other investment have you looked at? When I mean investment, what other avenues have you looked at to get money? Quickly, I can just give an example. When you looked at KMC, for example, all the streets of KMC will be packed with vehicle parking left, right, and center. And it makes life hell for me to even visit my mother in KM because I don't have the road to go to. And that's money making.
I think that's an important question. Yeah. And Banjul, it's already created a serious problem for them.
Yeah, so there's two issues there. One of the blockage, most of the blockage, I would say, is caused by mechanics. It's not caused by people parking. Most. One of the biggest issues in regards to that, like I said, is the importation of vehicles. Secondly, is KMC created a concept in 2019 called car city, because there must be a carrot and stick approach. If you're going to find people and say people leave a place, they must have somewhere to go and conduct their business. So one of the concepts we created was car city, was to find a big piece of land where we can demarcate effectively and rent out to people who want to engage in mechanic workshops or car businesses. Unfortunately, this issue did not gain traction with the then Ministry of Lands because for one reason or the other, I don't know. But KMC does not have an ability to allocate land. That's another issue. So all land use, all land allocations are all centralized with the central government. Believe it or not, even the parks that they say are KMCs, we don't have leases for them. Even the building I sit in, I don't have a lease for it. The markets we own, we don't have leases for it. How this happened and got to this stage, I don't understand. But it's something that needs to be changed, and we've tried to change it. We have submitted about 45 pieces of plots that we would want.
Do you need a legislation for that?
Yes, we need to decentralize. I mean, without the ability to manage your land resources, you cannot manage your city. If today I cannot zone you, I cannot give you building permits, I cannot tell you where you can put a signboard, where you cannot put a signboard, all these little things, how can I manage my city? How can I plan 30 years from now what should happen in KMC? So these are all the things we have asked for as far as devolution of power.
Do we have a national plan as far as that is concerned?
Well, that should
decentralization.
That should be at the national level. A while back, under the former, yes, there was one decentralization policy during the former regime, but it was not followed through. Now, there's a classic argument you will have with government. Government will say, well, if we give you all these powers and all these responsibility, you don't have the revenue and the capacity to follow. And we say, no, you should give us a share of the larger revenue and give us the powers to develop our capacity so we can take up this responsibility. Because decentralization, devolution of power is about the grassroots. And it must be intentional. Government must have the intention that, okay, I want my councils to better serve the people because they are the closest to the grassroots. You can walk into your councillor's office, you can walk into the mayor's office, but you find it very difficult to go see the president. That's why government has all these structures, and that's why councils were built in the first place, to serve the communities. So the power must follow, and government must just regulate and oversee and monitor councils, but should allow councils to function as service delivery.
Earlier you talked about is the mechanics that are blocking the roads.
Yes.
Or, But what about the parking? You've been to developed countries. You've been all over the place.
Yeah.
You've seen for example traffic wardens, for example.
Yeah.
I don't see it as an excuse when Lord Mayor of KMC sits and says I don't have money. I think there is so much money in KMC.
I did not say I didn't have money.
Okay.
I said
you have challenges to get money.
We have challenges to get money, but resources is a global challenge. It's not just
I totally agree with you, but there's a pot of money sitting somewhere.
When you say
when you talk about these parkings, imagine from your place, KMC, all the way to Abuko, left, right, and center. Cars will be parking all over the place. From Westfield right down to Tipper Garage. From Westfield right down to KMC, to Kairaba traffic light. Cars are
the
parking.
question is, are they parking illegally?
Of course they are parking illegally.
Where does it say no parking?
Section 65 of Road Traffic Act is illegal. So where they are parking, they are blocking the traffic.
Like where?
So everywhere, Mayor. Let me say this. I think what I'm saying is, you've been to London, right?
Of course, but London has no parking signs.
Let's stay in the gap here. I'm suggesting to you, make sure you clear those roads and put double yellow lines. That anybody who parks on those
I know you're interviewing me. But let me ask you a question. Traffic is not under the control of councils.
I understand that.
So parking is not under the control of councils. If you're on a road and you have
Could it be? This is what I'm saying. Should it be on you people?
Of course. So when IGP, no, it has to be done legislatively.
Why
so when IG, we've pushed.
I think what he's
seen. I don't need to go back to
just some of the history.
I think what he's driving at is council can look at ways of creating these parking places where people can park and maybe even pay something.
But for me to create a space where I can park, I need the land to be under my control.
Not even the space. Not even the space. But on the road.
If I am to control the road has to be under my control.
You have to push for it.
We've pushed.
And what happened?
Haven't you heard me in the media? Haven't you seen me in parliament? I've always pushed for devolution of power, decentralization. We've seen a change though, that in terms of language. When IG visited me 2 weeks ago, he said that they are looking at ways to decentralize policing. they want regions to take more control as far as policing their regions, according to that meeting. And he said traffic, even traffic, KMC as a municipality, as an authority, a local government authority, should have a say in the traffic management of their municipality. So if that day comes, I will take full responsibility of what I have done or what I have not done. But traffic control is solely under the National Police.
You mentioned Parliament, and this reminds me, earlier this year, the Select Committee on Local Government, when they were reviewing Council's 2019 financial statement, they identified some gaps. This includes the payment vouchers, what 7.6 million, but they said wasn't presented. It also included, I think earlier you also did mention how the previous administration had employed people, who were not the right staff with the right capacity. But in 2019, the Select Committee did also identify this as still a problem, and this is during your time. So this is just one of several gaps that they've identified. So I want to know what you have done or what you're doing to address these things.
So on the issue of specifically the amount you were talking about, 7 point something million unpresented vouchers. So that is when the National Audit Office came to Council, and later, during the Select Committee meeting, they reported that they did not have the compliance of the then CEO and Director of Finance. They said that at the Select Committee meeting. According to them, I was unreachable because of the COVID. Because just when COVID came in 2020, when they were actually doing the audit exercise. So they're auditing 2019, but the exercise is being done the year after 2020. I don't think that's an excuse.
Unreachable. Did they reach out to you?
Well,
formally?
They said they gave me the audit book. They said they tried to reach out to me, etc. But whatever the case, its default is KMC's administration.
Okay.
And the responsibility of the administration is the CEO and Director of Finance. We have oversight function as the mayor and the council, and we have committees to overlook that. But those unpresented vouchers have since been presented. So it's a case of when they were auditing, they asked for those vouchers and they were not given the cooperation they needed, which is unfortunate. And I told them that should never happen. So this was only brought to my attention during that Select Committee meeting.
So can one say this is basically lapse of internal audit control?
So let me give you an example.
It's actually one of those that they identified.
Since 2019.
Yes.
So if councils are to take full responsibility of their administration, they have to have the ability to fire and hire. If I don't have the power to hire my CEO, imagine the president did not have the power to hire his ministers. And he doesn't have the power to fire those ministers. And we now have to rely on a third party that sits whenever and decides on our behalf. It becomes very difficult now as mayor to hold me accountable for this stuff. So all we essentially are figureheads who are overseeing these issues, and we report accordingly.
So are you suggesting there should be legislation?
Of course, we have to have control.
So what does the CEO have to do with these lapses of internal audits in the country?
So the mayor does not do checks. I don't sign checks. I don't deal with finance. I don't deal with anything administrative. My job as a mayor is oversight, governance, sense of direction. So whereas when you go to Freetown, you go to Monrovia, you go to mayors in Senegal, you go to mayors in America, mayors are executives. When they win elections, they're given their full mandates and they're held accountable for their time.
You seem to be giving Senegal as an example. This is the second time.
Yes.
You talked about Kaolack, you talk about Bour.
Yes.
Where before, when you were a kid, it was a dirty place, for example. The Senegalese police, forgive me.
I didn't say it was dirty. I said it was litter.
So what method was used to clear that? I remember very well.
Yes.
What was done to clear that?
It was done at the council level.
Okay.
Yes.
What method have they used to make sure that the areas like the Bour, the Kaolack are more clean?
So one thing, you got to give councils autonomy and authority. Then you need to resource the councils. So one of the classic fights we have with government is subventions. So subventions have never been given to councils. Recently, they started giving 2 million a year to every council. My salary a month in council is about 6.5 million.
So you are well paid, right?
No, not my
This
particular
is
salary.
council general.
Oh, I wish. I mean, the entire salary of KMC,
All right, just to get
615. But I'm just giving you how small that money is. What the law says, or the Finance and Audit Act says, KMC or any council subvention must be 25% of their development fund. In KMC, our development fund, let's say, for example, last year was about 140 million. If you take 25% of that, our subvention should be about 35 to 40 million. So we don't have those resources that are stated by law. What we've actually seen councils in other countries is even resources that are not stated by law. If the government sees a problem and they believe they want councils to solve it, they can even find monies and just subvent councils and say, hey, solve those problems. And I think that is also easy for government. Because end of the day, they can televise that they have given this council this much money. So everybody knows that problem in that municipality is the responsibility
Thank
of
you,
the
thank you,
council.
thank you very much.
And they can hold
Quickly,
us to account,
you talked about the new Minister of Local Government,
Yeah.
my brother, Abba Sanyang.
Yeah.
You talk a lot about him. And of course, before him, the predecessor was there. It seems you had a bit of a issue with the former minister and whatever, because we had seen few times where you guys were in loggerheads. Why do you have that difficult relationship? And it seems to be, this new minister seems to be in your good books. What's going on? Is it too early?
Nobody's in my bad books. I wouldn't want to dwell on the former minister. All I could say is Honorable Abba Sanyang is the first minister who ever paid courtesy call to us as far as I was in office. And was the first minister who actually called us and said, I want to meet you, Mayor. I want to meet all your alcalis. I want to discuss the challenges you're having as far as land management is concerned, as far as the council's relationship with alcalis, and as far as your role as a chief. They appointed me chief apparently because KMC doesn't have a chief. And I think those kinds of tete-a-tetes, those type of visits strengthen relationships and they improve understanding. And when he came, it was just the fact that he wanted to come was a pleasant surprise, just not to me, but the councillors and also the staff of council. Council has a large staff of 1,300 people. So this was a pleasant surprise and a welcome. And when he came also, some of the things that he said, it was an encouragement. I mean, I was so happy coming out of there because a lot of the things we were discussing, a lot of the things we were fighting for, he mentioned as part of his plans. So the engagement is important. The local government is a fraternity. One cannot succeed without the other. As the ministry, their job is oversight, regulation, monitoring. We are the implementers. So for our success, we need their backing. So when he came and said some of those things, like I said, that's never happened. It just started the relationship on a good foot. Now we want to see how we can do things together. And like I told him, our success is part of your legacy because it's during your time as a minister. And we even have projects that we want to do, but because that of our subnational level, we don't have the mandate to do them. We want to pass it to you to implement, and we will be there to cheer
Thank you very much.
Yes, talking about mandates, let me draw you still, back a bit on some internal administrative areas. I know earlier you did mention that, you're kind of restricted to only doing your oversight functions and not being able to do one or two things.
Yes.
Still on the issue of legislation, has this in any way affected, how does it impact your work?
Legislation impacts the entire country from A to Z. And I hope parliamentarians, the new parliament, understands that all our lives are in their hands. As much as responsibility is on the cabinet's hand, is in their hands as well. They are the ones guiding the cabinet. They are the ones holding the cabinet to account and also charting a path as far as laws are going in this country. We want to see more effective legislation on local government, on sanitation, on environment, on all aspects. And we want them to actually create laws, not just to call people and hold them to account or ask them questions, but actively create laws. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legislator, but I once read that law is breathing, is a living thing. It evolves with the people and the community and the time. So you have to be ahead. So the times are changing, the challenges are changing along with them, and the opportunities are presenting themselves. So what legislation are they bringing that will support the development of Gambia. And for example, local government, as far as local government is concerned, for the past 5 years, there's zero legislation. I am not aware, since before we came into office. You know, Parliament was elected 1 year before we actually came into office. There was good legislation as far as giving chairmen the elected mandate by universal adult suffrage, which did not exist before. There was some legislation that was brought forward by giving some powers to council. But since then, nothing has happened.
We've seen the amendment of the Local Government Act.
When?
That's what just happened.
When was this?
This is 2018.
Yes, that was before we came into office.
Okay.
So we came into office 2018 May.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, so before that was a slight amendments. There was 2 or 3 amendments.
Yes.
But there's a whole lot of amendments that are needed. If you take Nigeria, for example, in just this February, the Senate gave local government authorities full autonomy.
Okay.
And for Anglophone countries,
want that as well.
of course.
Okay, so just a quick one. I know we haven't gotten there yet. Your term ends in December,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Would you seek re-election?
Well, right now I'm just focused on serving the people. Like I said, I don't like to be distracted. As you've seen me, I don't watch TV, I don't listen to radio. All I look at is the work I have in front of me and the mandate I have. When I get to the bridge, I will cross it.
So how political is KMC? You talked earlier about the former regime, that the council was used as a political bureau. You in office as the Lord Mayor of KMC, how political is your office?
So I did not say it was used as a political bureau. I said it was heavily politicized.
Heavily politicized, whatever.
But like I said, I have tried to see myself as a development-oriented guy. I'm not a politician. I have tried to divorce politics from administration. We have various political parties in KMC. We accommodate them all. We treat them equally. As far as the administration is concerned, we don't ask them to engage in any of our politics, and we would never like to see that. All we want them is to serve the people to the best of their ability. If you serve the people to the best of your ability, during my time as mayor, you've done my politics for me. I don't need you to wear my cap or to sing my praises.
Getting that, you say you divorce yourself, but whenever you have an activity in KMC, we'll see your political colors all over the place. So how can you divorce yourself?
Well, those are Gambians who want to support their mayor and their political party. We don't know, NPP can come, APRC can come, and sometimes they do. We invite everybody. We just want people to celebrate our achievements. And we never want anybody to look at our achievements as being political or for this party or for that party. Every political party or every politician, when you're going for elections, you never say, I'm going to serve my party. You always say, I'm going to serve Gambia. I'm the best for Gambians. So we like to practice that in our time in office.
Okay,
we seem to be running out of time.
Yes,
quickly.
just quickly. You came into office as the youngest mayor we've had so far.
I'm still the youngest.
And you're still the youngest we've had in this country. What are you doing for the young people? Any ongoing projects for the young people of this region?
Well, to the best of our ability, I have done everything I have thought of for young people. And as many ideas I get, I will try to implement. Starting with the artists and culture, we've supported arts and culture as much as possible by always pumping money into their shows. On top of that, we are also starting to build the first arts and culture center here in KMC, which should be a 500-seater center. Secondly, we've also tried to support youth businesses that have a council element to it. For example, even the bin project you mentioned, that was young people who were recycling tires and turning them into bins. We have also partnered with YEP on a few programs. One was the $1 Million Challenge for COVID solutions, for businesses that are bringing COVID solutions. We've also partnered with the British Embassy and IOM to give young people about a grant of 150,000 each, and I think 200 KMC young people benefited from that. Young people are the engine of this country, and they are the future. I am a young person.
Good.
So as soon as I think, the first thing I'm thinking is, how do I engage the young people to be a part of this success? So we are also building the first library.
After listening to all what you talked about here, all the good
library,
things,
don't
all
forget,
the good things you talked about.
KMC.
Lord Mayor, I've not heard anything that you said about young families. What are you doing for young families?
The thing that I plan to do for young families.
You planned, but you've not done any in this family.
Well, young families, I've never thought of that segment as an issue in society. I think about young people as an issue generally.
Yes.
But if you want to specifically point out young families,
Yes.
one thing that we are actively trying to work out, and the minister also mentioned this because we were whispering to each other, was how do we bring affordable homes in KMC? KMC, like I said, because of the land pressure, one person told me the problem with the world or Gambia is God keeps creating people, but he's not creating land.
No,
and everybody wants a land.
I would disagree, or we are mismanaging the land.
So land is always under pressure, and especially for KMC, because you know all of the people in West Coast want to live in KMC. So the issue is, including yourself. So the issue is land has become so valuable. Houses have become so expensive. KMC residents are moving out of their houses.
Okay, let's fast forward. Let's fast forward. You're talking about housing for young families. Let's fast forward.
Yes.
For example, he's a young family.
Yeah.
You know, he wants to go out and outing with his.
I'm very much interested in this one.
Yeah, with his.
You're actually interested.
With his little daughter.
Oh, you're talking about.
Yeah. What? You know.
So you see what is happening.
Yes.
You're talking about the leisure.
Yes.
He's talking about housing.
Exactly. I'm talking both of them. You only talk about young family. We're talking about housing.
So I can come to the leisure right after I finish the housing.
Okay, go ahead.
So the housing pressure is so high, it's caused people to abandon their homes and rent it.
Yes.
And this is causing rent to skyrocket in KMC. And for viewers out there, rent is no longer under KMC's mandate. It's not been under KMC's mandate since the last regime. It's now under the Carnifing Magistrates Court. So I want to clarify that because the rent tribunal was in KMC. Every day we receive complaints about illegal evictions or high rent prices being charged, etc. So we cannot do anything legislative to regulate rent. But what we are trying to do now is to create supply.
Okay.
How do we create a supply of affordable homes that will increase the amount of homes available and put pressure on rent to go down? And that should support the young families. On the leisure side,
yes.
I take parks very seriously. I'm a young person and I always say there's not much to do in Gambia. When you're not
actually
walking,
there's nothing to do.
There's nothing to do. So yesterday I was even trying to go to Sunday Beach to have fun a little and enjoy myself. But without that Sunday Beach, what else can you do in Gambia? So have you seen recently we are partnering the likes of different corporate bodies to create parks. We are also...
we have Q City here.
Well, within KMC, Q City is within
West Coast. Okay.
Yeah, so we are trying to partner with different
a private institution.
corporate bodies to create parks. And part of our KTEP project, which is the EU project, we have pegged 7 parks that we will create, including outdoor gyms, basketball courts, and we are modeling it out. We are modeling it after the Corniche in Senegal. And just in traffic light, you will see 2 parks that will spring up. One is under construction, the other will start, and these are all free.
Okay.
Basketball, weightlifting, 5-a-side.
I was wondering why you didn't talk about young family, but now that you talked about it, I'm happy.
I'm
not a young family. I don't have a young family. I don't have a young family. I'm old now. Thank you so much for having you. Quickly, just to wrap up, looking forward, what are your main priorities for KMC? Finally.
So my main priorities right now is we plan to build 7 markets to create safe selling spaces for all these street vendors. Give them an opportunity to do the right thing and get into a market.
You said earlier you don't have access to land, you don't have land. How are you going to build this
So
market?
what we've done is we've set up we have a private markets company. Okay. And then that's the method KMC is doing now. We are sort of creating our own small parastatals that have the freedom to raise capital, buy land, and create services at a subsidized rate for the public. So same concept goes for our bus service called KMT. We know that right now we have GTS, which is a very vital service focused on long distance. Recently, they've been trying to do inner city transport, but still the numbers they are providing are very low. So we are trying to work with them, coordinate with them to also bring a service that also...
Thank you so much, Lord Mayor. Thank you so much, Eso Nyasi. And thank you so much, viewers, for taking the time to join us on this very special edition of State of Affairs. And we look forward to coming back here next week, the same time, the same place. This program will be repeated on Sunday at 10 a.m. Thank you so much.
Thank you.